The fastest one that I've ever used was the Fully. Fully has come out with a new one. You take the bed knife, you set it on there, you flip a switch, and it's magnetized. It actually magnetically holds it there. It's got a set of stops at either end. You pull a pin, you push the pin in at 5 degrees, you push a button and it will mechanically rotates until it hits the stop. I'm at 5 degrees. You run the stone in until it just touches all the way. You push on, it automatically traverses. As soon as you're done with one side, you just back the stone away. You pull the pins, you put them at 15 degrees the opposite way. It mechanically rolls back. You run the stone in, it just touches. Turn it on, it automatically traverses back and forth. You can walk into a room, put it in there, set it up, grind it, remove it, wipe the machine down and leave in less than 5 minutes.
What's it cost?
It's going to cost somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000. It's going to be about the same price as the Dual Express. The Dual Express takes a lot of time to set up. It's time consuming. So if I was going to buy a Dual Express, I wouldn't buy a Dual Express bed knife grinder. I would buy a Fully bed knife grinder. I would like to use the Simplex bed knife grinder and compare the two side by side to see which one is truly faster between the Fully and the Simplex. I'm not really sure. I haven't got to see the other two, the Simplex, enough. So because you're doing two at one time, it could potentially be faster, but I don't know. So it's something that you'd want to experiment with. But the newer ones are going to have cooling. We want to keep the bed knife as cool as possible. Anytime that metal gets hot, it's going to expand and it will warp. And so if you try to grind this too fast, it's going to overheat and you're going to actually grind a smile in it. And you can see, because this thing is kind of flopping around, it's pretty easy to bump it and actually get something to change. So you got to be really careful. This is an art form where you get it in there and make sure that you get all your stops tight and that this thing isn't dirty. If you get metal filings on here and you don't keep these rods clean, it runs up on top of the debris and drops down. You're going to have a wavy bed knife and you're not going to have a clean cut when you do it. You keep them clean, you make sure you're tight, make sure this is adjusted right, and this actually works pretty slick. It's not a bad one, and that one's not really a bad one either if you keep it clean and make sure you're set up right. There are faster ones out there, and so when you go to these golf shows, look at what's new, but the price tag goes from $400 or $500 to $10,000. So what is your budget and how much money are you saving? And the thing you got to look is how much time and energy am I saving by having spent the money up front versus spending it over the next 10 years. That's a very important consideration.
Other people do it for you, they charge a lot.
It depends. If you take it to a dealer, I have a piece of paper that I thought we gave out already. The spin grinder reel, it's like $50. To put a relief grind, they charge you per blade. It's like $35 a blade. A bed knife for a single cut is like $40, $50. It gets expensive. And even other courses, a lot of times two courses will go together, buy one grinder, and the two of them share the grinder. And so that happens. There's a lot of things people do to reduce the cost. You don't use grinders that much, and so do that. 2 or 3 courses, 4 courses get together, or one course will just send them all over to one guy that has a grinder and that technician that knows what he's doing, and they'll just pay. The technician charges whatever he wants to charge, which if he's making $12 an hour, he says, well, I'll do it for $15 an hour. The dealer is charging shop rate, which is about $60 an hour. So say a guy, you can pay a guy $20 an hour and still be a third the price as sending it to a dealer. There's good money at dealerships grinding reels because they charge you for it. They charge you per hour to put bearings in. They charge you by hour to change roller bearings. You look at this one here. I can't even turn this one here because the bearings are bad. If the bearings in this reel are bad, I probably shouldn't be doing that. If these bearings are bad and I try to grind it, especially on a spin grind, it'll cause the reel to vibrate in and out, and you'll get an uneven wavy, just like the rifling on the bed knife. You'll see rifling on your reel. And you go to set reel the bed knife and you've got high and low spots, it's probably because you have a bad bearings. And so you always want to check the bearings first. So spin it. Do you hear it? Do you feel it? If you feel any kind of roughness, especially if you just rock it back and forth and it feels like it's falling into a hole, you've got pitted bearings and it's not going to grind. You can't grind it. So there's a lot involved in it. You need to check bearings. You need to make sure your rollers are correct. This style here has got really bad rollers. But check all that stuff before you put it in the grinder. Make sure that you're parallel, up and down, forward and back. If you don't, you're going to cone shape it. That's a very bad thing to do. If you set the angle wrong, that's not super critical. But if you go too steep, it gets weak. If you're too shallow, it simply wears out faster.